Our gospel for this Sunday comes to us from the book of Mark, the first chapter. Jesus and his disciples went to Capernaum, and when the Sabbath came, he entered the synagogue and taught. They were astonished at his teaching, for he taught them as one having authority, and not as the scribes. Just then there was in their synagogues a man with an unclean spirit, and he cried out, "What have you to do with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God." But Jesus rebuked him, saying, "Be silent, and come out of him." And the unclean spirit, convulsing him and crying with a loud voice, came out of him. They were all amazed, and they kept on asking one another, "What is this? A new teaching with authority? He commands even the unclean spirits, and they obey him." At once his fame began to spread through the surrounding region of Galilee. This is the word of the Lord. You may be seated. Okay, I'd like to invite the children forward, and I'd like to give the parents, adults, everyone here a little background on what's about to happen. So normally when your pastor delivers a sermon, he comes well prepared, right? He spent all week long. But if I told the kids that they had to prepare a sermon, they had half an hour. And they're about to deliver a sermon to you about something to do with our first reading out of Deuteronomy. And in the book of Deuteronomy, we hear about a prophet. Who can tell me what a prophet is? Who wants to lead this? Jenna, go ahead. This is your part. Can you go up to the lectern? Go up to that mic right there. This microphone right here. Come here. Step up there and tell me what a prophet is. I'll help you out too.
A prophet is somebody who speaks for God and
confronts injustice.
Yeah,
very good. That's what you taught us about this, Ethan, because you're learning about this in class, right? Okay. Our Bible says what? That we're done with prophets, that we're finished with them? Do we have any more of them? We're finished. So there's no more of that going on? No. God will do what? God will raise up? Yeah, thanks. Jackson, come up here. Say this for me. Right there. God will raise up for us prophets, right?
God will rise up for us prophets.
And Jackson, do these people, do they have to be like extremely old? Is it like 80 plus that you get to be a prophet, or how old can they be? 21? There's a statement of 21? No, Jack, stay up there. What's the real limitations? Are there any limitations?
There are no limitations.
Well, I love that. Firmly said, yeah. Okay, absolutely. So we got a couple of things here. Pass these out, Thomas. Make sure everyone gets one of these things. Ethan, you're up next. I need you to talk about, come up here to the lectern mic with me. Not only is it a prophet's job to talk about things that are ancient, like we read out of the Bible today, right? We like reading out of the Bible, but there's some stuff that's going on in the world right now, this very week, that needs to be talked about, right? What did you read? You pulled up on CNN a story that had us kind of concerned. And there was an acronym that we have to spell out. It was the United Nations RWA, Relief and Works Agency. Did any of you open your mail or your newspaper this morning and read about this UNRWA worker scandal?
So,
what are these people supposed to be working on?
world peace.
Peace. Very important. Do you guys feel committed to peace? Good. Okay, we're in agreement. So we've got a job, peace. Thanks for holding up the peace signs. But what is the accusation? And we're going to be clear, there's just an accusation at this point in time. What did they do?
Secretary General Antonio Guterres said 9 of the 12 UNRWA staff members were the center of the allegations had been fired. One other was dead in the identity of the two because of the October 7th attack.
If you hadn't heard this before, the allegation is that some of the United Nations workers who were supposed to be doing peace work actually joined in on the October 7th infiltration into Israel. This is a group of people who we fund with our tax dollars and who have committed, like us, to being a part of the peacemaking process. So the fact that this is happening is good or bad?
Bad.
Very bad, very concerning.
Catastrophic.
Catastrophic. Ooh, we're using big words now. These prophets are getting interesting. So we all have something to speak up against when it comes to this, and this is a big deal, but I'm happy that our young people are engaged in this prophetic witness. And we said before, none of you are too young. Everybody here can do something about this, right? And we can do something about this and many other things. But I want to say particularly, this is one of the things where you probably have a couple of classmates or friends or neighbors who are Jewish, for instance, and they're feeling pretty concerned right now. You do? This sort of stuff is the stuff that has them very concerned and makes them feel like, is there anybody who I can trust? And I want you to be a friend to them this week, if you can. That would be a good thing to do. Okay? Ethan, thank you for your research. You guys, thank you for your sermon illustrations. Thank you for being prophets and for holding up a good witness. And thank you for everything that you will do and for your courage in doing it. You guys ready? If anybody asks, you can keep it, yeah. Who I am, who I am, who I am. If anybody asks you who I am, tell them I'm a child of God. Not bad for half an hour prep time, right? They're great. Would you join me in prayer? Lord, may the meditations of my heart and the words of my mouth be acceptable to you, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. Amen. Got pulled over this week by a cop. We're going to tell about that story in just a second, because I want to tell about a time not that long ago, actually it was a very long time ago now that I think about it, that I also got pulled over by a cop. I've told you stories from one of my favorite things to do, which is go on canoeing trips up in Minnesota's Boundary Waters area with all these connected lakes. It's really fun. How we tended to do it a little later on was as kind of a couples thing. My buddy Kevin and his wife Susie and Kara and I would go up, and it was nice because we would just bomb up this like 40-mile stretch of road called the Gunflint Trail, and at the end of the trail there was an outfitter, and they had the canoes, they had the backpacks, they had everything you needed, so it was easy to do without having to have a trailer, you know, and deal with all that. So we finished our trip together, and we are heading home. Oh, it feels good to be gonna get a shower, and we can't wait to get home. You gotta make good time because 40 miles is a long ways on this like single lane thing. And who is in front of us but this gigantic two vans, probably packed with kids, maybe they're on a mission trip or whatever, and they are pulling trailers of like 6 canoes all racked up. So are they going fast? No. Are they going slow? Oh yeah, real slow. Except for when the 2-lane highway includes a passing lane. That is when they decide to go as fast as their vans can possibly go, making it literally impossible for me to ever pass them. We have gone through 3 different passing stretches that I have not been able to use, and we're not going to be home by like 6 p.m. We're going to be home by like 11 p.m. if this continues. It is urgent that I pass these vans. So, on one stretch, I decide, come hell or high water, I am going to pass both of these vans. Pedal to the metal, flying by. I'm probably doing like 95 miles an hour. And wouldn't you know it, that's when the cops, the cherries, it's just like, of course, this is Murphy's Law, right? And he pulls me over, and the vans go flying by me again, right? And so the cop comes up to the window. My hands are shaking. I'm flush. I should mention, by the way, I'm like 22 years old. So Kara and I are like, what do you don't think it's 22? What do you, this definitely was. Okay. 28? I'm still nervous, okay? In my head, I'm 16, okay? So take that for a grain of salt. What I know is that this man can give me a fine so large that I don't know if I can pay rent. Like, this is the truth of things. I'm in deep trouble right now. And the other thing you should know about my buddy Kevin is that I might have an authority problem. I might have something to say about that. That guy's got an authority problem. Like, this is a dyed-in-the-wool libertarian. Like, I'm not sure he believes that police officers and the entire institution should exist. I think he believes that we'll just take care of it ourselves on our own communes with guns and whatever. So he's just angry. He's angry that we're getting pulled over. It's not like he's paying the fine. I'm going to end up paying it. The cop comes to the window. I'm shaking like a leaf. License and registration. Here it is. So the cop runs it, and he comes back to me and goes, "You look nervous." And Kevin speaks up. And he goes, "Of course he's nervous. You might have him pay $300 by the end of this." And I was like, "Kevin, shut up. I don't need that from you right now." But it was true. And so Kara starts yelling at me. I think she admonishes me during this about, like, I don't know why he was doing this either, officer. He's a big doofus, blah, 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 blah. And he says, thank God, he goes, "It seems like you're in enough trouble." And he hands me back my license, and I get to go on my way. Oh my gosh, that is my first run-in with authority. Actually, it's not my first run-in with authority, but that is a formational run-in with authority. I do have, and I think many of us have this sort of feeling when we're in the presence of somebody who holds great power and who has the power over us in that same way. Maybe if you can remember well what it feels like to be in that situation, you can do a good job when you're in positions of authority. When you're parenting or teaching, or if you're somebody's boss, I hope that you can remember how that feels and what tremendous power you have, and do right by the people under your authority. That's my first message for the day that I hope you take home with you. The second thing is that this is a problem for the church. Today we hear about how Jesus is a person imbued with enormous authority, and the kind of authority that even surprises the supposed authorities of his age. It extends beyond the borders of Israel. It extends beyond the borders they have set for themselves. Not only does he speak to the clean things, he speaks to the unclean things. This will become a ministry that will involve more people than has ever been involved before. It'll be for the whole world. It'll not be parochial in any sense. And in many ways, that's what we gather to celebrate every Sunday, is that the love of God is not contained to any time or place or region or people. It's for all people. And any justice claims, any grace claims, any love claims we make has to include absolutely everybody. And I'm thankful today that our young people reminded us that it has to include people who are still kidnapped in Gaza, and the Gazans themselves, and even UN workers, and everybody involved in this situation has both a demand placed upon them and a promise given to them. And that is our task, to make sure that the whole world knows that. Why I say it's a problem is that I'm afraid that our society, like me, has been soured on authority, full stop, end of sentence, period. And I don't know if you've experienced this at all in your lives, but I really think, especially young people, if they're told that they get to go, to a place where we're going to lift up the King of Kings, the Prince of Peace, all of these honorifics that are really medieval and are from a time and in a place where authority was seen as being descended from God, they just say no thanks. Like, we've got too many bad experiences. They open their history books and they read about Nixon, right? They look in their own communities and they can see, cops that might not have behaved so well. They can see abuses of power at virtually every level of even our own local government struggles with this at times to time. This is something that I don't think is particularly attractive to young people, to just say, we have found one with authority. And I don't know if we should continue just young people, because I wonder if it lands for each of you in that same kind of awkward way when we hear about Jesus, King of Kings, one with authority. Well, I'll tell you a second pulled over story, and that was from this week. I got pulled over by a cop again, and Ellie was in the car with me. We were on our way to daycare, and the cop pulls me over, and this time I'm actually not shaken. I'm actually rather confused, because I was driving pretty well, and I think I've still got January on my little sticker there, so I don't think I'm getting pulled over for that. But Ellie gives me the play-by-play. So she goes, "You're pulling the car over." And I said, "Yeah, I am. I'm pulling the car." "You're rolling your window down." "Yeah, I am. I'm rolling my window down." Yeah. And the guy comes and asks me for license and registration. She goes, "You're handing him a napkin." I said, "No, I keep napkins in the glove box too, but this is my registration." And he informs me my brake light is out. If anyone wants to help me in the parking lot after this, I think I can get it replaced. But and so we leave, and it's a very pleasant interaction, and it couldn't be more different than the prior interaction that I remember back years and years ago. So what was different? What made that kind of authority-based interaction different? Well, for one thing, I kind of knew the guy, right? Through my work with the Marblehead Police Department, I know most of the cops, so there isn't that era of unfamiliarity. And that's something that we can think a little bit about in terms of our authority-based interactions, is how much are we really involved in one another's lives? If we can close that distance, I think that's a good place to rehabilitate authority. The second thing was that I'm a little bit more grown up, I would say, at this point in time. And I have the experience of being responsible for people too, responsible for Ellie. In many ways, him telling me my brake light was out was actually kind of welcome. I was appreciative for his contribution. Now I know that I won't get rear-ended with my kids in the car. Actually, that's a good thing, you know? So that is also good. There was an element of mutual trust and appreciation for the authority and for him taking his job seriously. So thank you for that. And the last thing that I remember was that he was nice. This is the cheapest and the easiest one. If we are going to show one another, find one another in positions of authority, can we just be kind? I mean, it really is a good starting place. And it's a starting place indeed. It is further than just kindness when we talk about the authority of Christ on which it is based. This is foreign to Jesus' opponents. Jesus' opponents in the Bible are powerful people, and they are profoundly unkind. They are mean. They rule and they wield their authority with the power of death at the end of it. You can hear why. I mean, our Deuteronomy thing says a false prophet shall be put to death. Now, that is a high bar, but Jesus is not a false prophet. He speaks the love of God in truth. And so was John. Missing from today's passage, missing from last week, we heard that John had just been arrested. About this same time that we're hearing Jesus, we're hearing that John has been killed. John the Baptist, the man who paved the way for Jesus, is executed by state power. And they believe that they're right in doing such, and they believe that that is how they will carry out their authority in the world. Has anything changed, I ask you? Because we still read week after week in our papers the fact that those who have authority oftentimes keep it through violence, enforce it by wielding violence, and it can be violence of all kinds. I'm reminded, too, that the church has had a bad relationship with authority. We have, and this is Luther's has said this 500 years ago, we have to look into how churches use authority. I am not surprised when even sexual violence is a part of the story of the church, especially churches, high authority churches, churches that really want to invest a lot of power into individuals without the oversight that we talked about, without the kindness that we talked about. Again, 500 years we've been saying this, guys, right? And it appears that we need to continue to say it, because if we don't, these injustices perpetuate themselves. No, Jesus' opponents never realized this, and it continues to be something that's alive today, but it is absolutely not how God does business. If we look at what the authority of Jesus is and where it comes from, kindness really is just the beginning. It is out of profound love, and the kind of love that is little person love, right? It's for the little guy. Love for even the most maligned, even the most shameful, even the sickest people. People who are outcasts, people who no one else cared about. Jesus decides that his authority begins there, and that his good news will be first to them, to the poor, to the sick, to the brokenhearted, to each of us when we feel that we've got nothing in our tank and nothing that brings us a smile anymore. God says, I will be there with you. I'll get to the powerful later. I'll get to the rich at the end of my day, if there's time. Jesus starts down there. And why is that important that we say that Jesus' authority is authority from the bottom? Because it is an authority that includes also all things. It'd be one thing if I just said Jesus was a nice guy who had a particular message to give to people who are having a rough time. And, it's good that you got a buddy. And then I left here. But I'm not just telling you about God who is a nice guy. I'm telling you about God who is in charge. That's the authority thing here. The God who made the heavens and the earth, the God who set spinning the planets, also cares individually and specifically about you and what's going on in your life, and about each and every one of us in our darkest moments, about each and every one of those kids in Gaza, about each and every person in Eritrea, about the kidnapped person, about the poor person, about the failing student, about the laid off individual. These are God's loving concerns. And the authority by which Jesus will preach these things is good news to them, because it means that things can and will and are going to change. This is good news that needs to be shared. When God says that he will raise up a prophet and put the words in their mouths, yeah, we're talking about everybody. And I told the kids this morning that they are not exempt from spreading the message I just told you in their lives, but neither are you. Please join with me in being a beacon of that truth and that hope in a hopeless world, one that is longing for justice, that is calling out for Christ. Let it be so. Amen.